Let's try that again. There we go. Hello, Emily. Glad to see you. I'm still working out some kinks in OBS, so I was hoping to do this better, but I can't seem to get it to find out how to not show the microphone or take the audio microphone input from all the sides, but I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Don't I have like, what scenes is this active on or whatever? Nah, we will just have to do it manually then. Anyway, I figured I had no other plans for tonight, so I would do a stream. Partly because I want to paint more. I was about to say it's getting darker, but we already reached winter solstice, so it is actually getting lighter out there. But I'm getting into winter mode, and I'm getting into the whole lockdown, stay home, make some hobbies, and instead of just sitting in front of the TV, I figured, hey, why not sit here and stream some painting? So how are you today, Emily? You're doing okay. I'm glad to hear that. The minis we have today was kind of just randomly picked. I had planned on painting them, but I realized that I had nothing left to paint really on my sort of to-do list. I mean, I've got a ton of unpainted miniatures. I just didn't have anything that I felt like this is an obvious next one to paint. So I grabbed two minis from Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. We have on the left, we have Hatchet, and on the right we have the Void Warden, which trips up my tongue. Oh, D&D got cancelled, too much sickness going around. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope everyone gets well soon enough so you can get back to playing D&D. But, as I said, these are two of the characters from Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, that I didn't really plan on painting really, but I didn't have anything else, so why not? Just give them a quick cenital, a little bright cenital. Had to do it a little quickly, but I have news for you. The surprises I mentioned are some new commands and a new feature that I'm trying to incorporate, which is not related to the command though. The commands are related to the that way over on the other side, the rotating display I've got up and running now. Gonna start with this dude because I think he's a little easier to paint than the other one. Basically, we've got two commands for switching minis and point redemption things, whatever they're called. Viewer rewards, I think the official term is in Twitch. So basically you can redeem your rewards to force me to change the miniature that's being displayed. I feel that would be a really good way of having people burn through their points without getting enough that I actually have to braid my beard. Not that I don't want to braid my beard, but my cats keep stealing my hairbands, so even when I try to hide them here on my painting desk, they always find them, dig them out, and use them for toys. So anyway, there's one for picking a specific mini, and one for just picking whichever random mini I happen to pull out. But there is more. I also made new command, which is nothing. But that link there, you can actually see the minis I currently have, shall we say, available. I just picked a couple of the ones I painted over the years. Some of them, I should warn you, go all the way back to the 90s. So there's a terrible picture of them in that link. So if you choose mini and choose which one to pick, just describe which one it is, or say you want the Black or Blood Bowl player or whatever, and I'll put it on display for you for a while. I think I did a 5-minute timeout, so you will get to see the miniatures. And they will actually be a lot more in focus and clearer, I think, on the rotating display. If it didn't just start go, no, it's still fixed focus. So anyway, we have Hatchet. He is basically ranged DPS, throwing his hatchets and other stuff at enemies. And yeah, I have some good ideas what to do with him. Will involve, it's kind of a greenish brown with cloak. And yeah, I might actually just switch the mini once in a while. The last few times I've run with the rotating display, I only had a couple of miniatures, just whatever I had laying around on the table and was working on. So it'll be a little nice to just hopefully get people to choose. This is way too thin. That's odd. So yeah, it's definitely sad that your D&D session got cancelled. Yeah, there we go. So who else have we got viewing today? Don't be shy, feel free to say hi in chat and let us know how your week has been. Over here in Denmark, it is Friday evening, and we're painting miniatures. And I'll probably start chit-chatting about random D&D stuff or whatever. I always do. And yeah, the week is over. It's Friday. I mean, I would really love for it to not be like that. So many people say, "Oh, it's finally Friday." I would far rather have it be in such a way that people go, "Oh shit, it's already Friday. Now I can't go to work until Monday." Not because work should be, the driving thing in our lives or anything like that. It's just would be nice if people had jobs they wanted to return to on Monday. But I'm guessing no such luck. It's really weird why we're doing this to ourselves, but I think that's a rabbit hole we're not going to explore tonight. Yeah, it seems like even if you make your hobby your job, you still come to resent having to do it. As always, I have a fun story related to that. Back in, must be early 2005, I joined a company in the Danish part of the computer game industry. And I was like fully stoked. I was like, what, 28 at the time, 27? And really wanted to do games. It would be awesome, and wanted to use my programming skills for something other than just whatever random normal software I was doing. And what happened was that in the years I was in the computer game industry, I played a lot less computer than I did before and after. And even though the games I worked on were not super cool or fun or amazing in any way, I mean, we did games for set-top boxes and satellite receivers, so it's really limited hardware, and also really into the casual gaming segment. We did a lot of solitaire games, I remember. Well, a lot. We had 3 or 4 solitaire games. They were the most popular, by the way. So it wasn't like it was, AAA titles or anything like that. So it was not like I was sitting around playing, cool games all day or working on cool games. And, part of working on games is, of course, testing that your stuff works. It was just really standard, plain, simple graphics. I think for some of the Australian clients we had to do a 16 color, not even 16-bit, 16 color versions of the graphics for everything. But even so, just working with that and just doing that all day kind of meant that I didn't really feel like playing games when I got home. It was an interesting development that I had not seen coming. But yeah. So I think the thing that separates a hobby from a job is that the hobby you just do whenever you feel like it. And the job eventually you will get some tasks where you just end up having to do them. If it's administrative, like doing the accountings if you run your own company, or if it's just all the other stuff, like the tedious part of software development is, for me, the whole sort of packaging, wrapping everything up, making sure everything works in every circumstance. Not the testing itself, not writing tests, that can actually be fun and a good part of it, but just the whole late game, late day, make sure everything works on, if you're doing mobile games or mobile websites, whatever, make sure it works on all the different resolutions that people can run their browser in. Make sure it works on outdated operating systems and browsers, whatever, all those kind of things. Make sure that it installs flawlessly on its own, unattended, all those things that should just work. When you're a consumer, you really just want that to work. You don't want to have to do all sorts of weird things to install a new app on your phone or whatever. It's fine to have a little configuration to do once in a while, but you don't want to run through a lot of hoops just to install a new app and be able to, play a solitaire game or whatever. But for that to happen, developers actually have to go through a lot of steps and a lot of tedious testing, not the fun kind of testing, just the yes, it works on this platform, yes, it works on that platform, over and over and over. And a lot of that can be automated and should be automated. There will always be something that can't. Or there will just be the more menial tasks in the programming part, just cleaning up. Go on. Yeah, Emily writes, yeah, I mostly like what I do, but sometimes, and some people make it frustrating, exactly, because then you all of a sudden, you have the dreaded beast from the most deep and dark circle of hell, the client. I'm joking here because we are all clients whenever we buy something, so it's all in good fun. Remember that, kids. But it's just still, you have, and then people change the requirements. They go, oh yeah, but I know I said I wanted a green, but now I want a blue, or whatever is appropriate for your line of business. That just happens at some point, and you have to deal with that, and you have to redo the same thing over and over. And then it goes from being something cool and fun and new to just being, okay, so we're going to do this that way. Okay, now we're going to do it that way. Okay, that wasn't what the client wanted. We're going to redo it. And the third, fourth, fifth time you redo the same thing to different specifications. I mean, I think it's okay to be frustrated and bored. Yeah. Exactly. You know, physical print design that Emily mentioned. You make a final physical product. If it's a flyer, poster, whatever it is, an inlet for a CD, movie, anything, it gets printed on a physical media, which I know involves its own set of problems for finishing that up. But then at least you're done and you don't have to maintain it as much afterwards. So yeah. I should also mention that, not surprisingly, we are of course listening to Adrian von Ziegler, who is a really, really good and talented musician who allows people to use his music for streams and so on. Check him out on YouTube. It's Adrian von Ziegler. It's going to be a link in the description of the video. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, this guy should not have been called Hatchet singular. He should have been called Hatchets plural. I can so far see 5, 6 hatchets, 7 hatchets on his person. Which reminds me of a quote from the old role-playing game Shadowrun by Phaser Corporation. In one of the old versions of it, I think second, there was a quote in the equipment section of the rulebook stating that Shadowrunners, which are type of characters, tend to arm themselves with everything from machine guns to toaster ovens and enough ammunition and bread to keep them running for years continuously. Keep running continuously for years is probably the grammatically correct way of saying it. And they're not wrong. Refresh my memory, Emily. What other role-playing games have you tried apart from D&D and you play Paranoia as well on your podcast? Mm. I'm sorry, Emily. It was not my intention to make you think. I know that that's really unfair on a Friday. The company, is that a system called the company, or a specific game setting or world or campaign or something? I'm just going to throw in the remark here that on stream in the past I have been less than kind to the Gloomhaven miniatures. That's from the second print. But Jaws of the Lion, the miniatures there are actually a lot better and definitely worth painting. So that is great. Always great when people improve. So Paranoia, End of the World. I think it's okay. So the company is kind of just a whole thing. D10 based. Yeah. I saw someone suggest something interesting at some point regarding D&D, and that was to change the D20 to a percentage die. It would be a D100, and just do all the percentages, because you would get a lot finer sort of level of detail in difficulty numbers and stuff like that. But the article where they mentioned it, they also said that would probably be hard sell to people, because then they would suddenly have to think not in +1, +2, +3, but +15, +20, whatever would be appropriate, and that might throw off some people. And then I keep hearing Elena's math is hard comment in my head. D&D doesn't have a lot of math, Emily. Come on. Just simple addition and subtraction. Just because I can't say the words doesn't mean I can't do the math. And all of it is kind of just, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I get that there's a lot of things to remember, but the math itself is usually +2, +5, -10, whatever. And once you actually have the numbers, it's really nothing you don't use whenever you go down to buy something. At the store, and they say it's actually less, because at the store they say something like 5% off. You don't have percentage calculations. Simple math is hard sometimes. Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. It's just finally the many years where I got a lot of bullying for actually paying attention at school. It pays off. 15. Yeah, so that throws it. And I mean, a lot of it is mostly about what you're used to using your brain for. If you're not used to adding and subtracting numbers on a daily basis, outside of D&D and so on, sure, it's going to lock up your brain, and that's not a problem. That's just how it is. And actually, I spoke, it must be 15 years or so ago, I had a friend who was actually a bit like, is it called dyslexic? Is that still something we're allowed to say? People who have trouble reading and putting letters together as words. She was that just with numbers. So when she heard a number, or especially if there were several numbers, her brain just scrambled them completely for her. So saying to her 15 + 8 would be really weird, and would be sort of probably turned around in her head to maybe 51, or the 15 and 8 would be messed up somehow. So she couldn't really sort of see or translate, I think it's a good description for it, translate the numbers into something she could use more rationally to actually do the calculations. And I know for a fact that she was good at doing the calculations. There was nothing there when she got to it, or if she had the numbers on paper, that just worked perfectly. But it's just hearing the numbers they got completely scrambled in her head. And I mean, that's really annoying, because I don't think she was hurt that bad by it when it came to what time she should arrive for something. That seemed to work well. But things like, oh, so you just I don't know, add 2 to this or whatever, that was not fun, and it's a thing. Mhm. But Emily, since you're here, I think you're going to be my guinea pig, crash test dummy, if you will, on another new feature that I want to test out. And that's why I was muted at the beginning, because I was hoping to only mute the mic in some scenes. I'm gonna have to figure that out later. So I'm just gonna cut the music, and I'm gonna invite you to the very first ever on stream. Hey John, you're also just in time to be a test dummy. So that's just brilliant. So what we're doing today for the very first time, and hopefully I can make this a recurring event with new things on every stream, is that we are doing a story time. I will be switching to a scene that will hopefully tell you a small pre-recorded small bit of story from a world that I built a year and a half ago for Britt and one of her friends. And this is part of the sort of the world building, creation, background story. And I hope to expand on that world and some of the characters and people in it. So I'm gonna try and do this as a fixed segment, just a few minutes. So I hope you enjoy. Koravia, the lay of the land. At first glance, Koravia is a very small and insignificant world in the multiverse. It is, quite simply, a small valley in the middle of nowhere surrounded by a mountain range. Beyond the mountains is a vertical cliffside that seems to go on forever, its top hidden in massive clouds. The center of the valley is made up of a large lake, Loch Cora. Upon its shores, most of the world's civilized population can be found. Elven cities of splendor, human-driven trade hubs, the pleasant, laughter-filled gnomish settlements. Only the dwarves are mainly situated elsewhere, their long dark tunnels burrowing deep inside the ground underneath the valley's jungles. There are even rumors that they go all the way beneath Loch Cora. Surrounding the lake on most sides are thick rainforests. The air there is heavy and moist. It almost feels like the ground itself is heated, as it is not uncommon to see and feel mists of evaporated water rising. This gives the forest an atmosphere of both beautiful splendor and sinister secrets. Few people other than elves venture far into the forests, except on those few roads that have been constructed over the millennia to bind together the towns and castles of Koravia. The latter, the castles, were erected in ages past and are now under the control of the 5 orders. 5 chapters of an ancient knightly order that long ago cracked and split into different, highly disagreeing groups that even today have a hard time tolerating each other. These knights lived deep in the forest, safe behind their massive walls. Once every generation or so, they sent their newest recruits out to journey in the world in search of, so they claim, honor and glory. As for the elves, they seem to have found some symbiotic way of living with the wild nature. This gives them a unique position where they can earn riches and status from hunting the magnificent beasts found among the trees. Or they could have, were they not too caught up in other, more important aspects of life, such as the arts, philosophy, and so on. Of those non-elves foolish enough to stray far from the roads, most are never heard from again. The few who return are forever changed. Despite the riches and wondrous artifacts they sometimes bring back, they are marked by experiences they either do not talk about, or which are so fantastical as to be nearly unbelievable. To the north of the lake, the forests give way to large plains leading up to the only cold place in Koravia, the northern mountains. This area grows unnaturally colder until, at the edge of the laughing cliffs, it is almost always sub-zero temperatures. The snow falls heavy in winter and lingers on almost until summer, if such a word can be used in this part of the world. From the edge of the world, large rivers slither through the forests and plains on their way to Loch Cora. That is to say, from all corners except west, where the mysterious climbing river run the other way. Many rumors have risen to try to explain this strange phenomenon. None have succeeded. Perhaps it really is the many salmon in the river that forever pushed the water the wrong way. Or maybe Joy, god of laughter, simply decided it would be more fun this way. Okay, so I think that was the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Thanks, John. It's just a small blurb I wrote to get my players interested back then and just get my creative process going with designing the world. And I figured just touched it up a little bit, fixed some errors here and there, like missing half a sentence at some point, and just recorded it. And instead of me rambling while I try to paint, I figured it might be a good idea to just have something a little more structured, and hopefully also something people will enjoy hearing about. So the plan is to do, I think this was about 600 words, and it's about 4 minutes. So yes, and it is very much the intention to just do, maybe 800 words or so, which should be about 5 minutes to just explore different areas, different regions, different people, places, all those things. It will help me build the world, and it might be entertaining, and it gives me a short break from feeling like an idiot when I don't know what to talk about. So yeah, so doing a couple of those per week should be doable. I mean, we're not talking publishable literature here in any way. This is a world that I've been having had in my head for a year and a half now. As I said, spent a lot of time building it, designing it, and all that. So it's I'm hoping that it'll be a sort of recurring theme or concept that I can keep doing for a while. So yeah, but thank you. Thanks for the support. And I know the audio quality wasn't the best. I've had the idea for a while and just decided today that what the heck, I'm just gonna do it. So I just pulled up my microphone, started Audacity, and just recorded something. Found out there was a lot of background noise, and did a really, really quick Google search for how to remove noise in Audacity. So and I'm also very much not trained as a speaker in that way, but I'm guessing I will be. And background music, yeah, regarding background music, I have plans for that as well. Because I know some people who are talented at doing music, other than the guy we are listening to again now. Also don't need the headphones anymore. And one of them, kind of what got me thinking about that kind of artistic project again, a creative project again, is a friend of mine called Peter, who is this month doing a January project or challenge or whatever it is, where the idea is to create a small tune, a song every day in all of January. And he's doing these small 3 or 4 minute videos. It's not techno music, but electronic music of various kinds. So I actually figured that I would ask him if he would be kind enough to make a small kind of tune, airy breeze, something to go in the background while I speak over it. Just go for the 5 minute mark. I think that would be fun. I mean, ideally, I would like him to teach me how to do these things myself, but realistically, I don't think that's gonna result in any music you want to listen to this year, at least. So that was the concept, that was the plan. And on top of that, John, as I also told Emily before, I've also added some new commands to help people use their channel points. So a command for replacing which mini is being shown on the display. I mean, I can do it myself, of course, but I mean, if there's anything you want to watch or look at, I've got a command called exclamation mark minis that gives a link to a picture of the minis I have close by. So just pick whatever and I'll put it on display. And yes, I have included some minis that go all the way back to the 90s, so you can see how I painted way back then. And yeah, background music adds a lot to these things. It doesn't have to be much. It can be something really, really simple. I prefer it to not have a lot of beats, because it, like when for strictly background music, if it's not going to be sort of high-paced, intense, like a car chase or fight or battle scene or whatever, I prefer it to be really discreet and more sort of setting the mood rather than giving you an actual beat that you're listening to. And it's kind of difficult to find that kind of music. So hey, getting a musician to create it, why not? Random mini. That means, John, that I will now pick a random mini from this box of random minis. I need dice because there are 6x4 spots. Here we have dice. So I'm just gonna roll a d6 for that direction and d4 in that direction. There are a few empty slots, but I'll re-roll those. So a 4 and a 4. That would be, counting from top left because I've done way too much graphics and computer stuff. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are down in this section here where we have a character I may or may not be playing. Where does he go? He lives down here in D&D soon. I painted him on stream a little while ago. So there we go. A random mini. I'm just gonna stick the dice down here. Seems appropriate. So Nima, who's on display, Nima Nevermore, is a cleric to the trickster god Raleigh Shah, I think it's pronounced, in Greyhawk. And he started out as his... Yeah, he is technically speaking a cleric. That's where he started out. But then very soon, both his masters and the god itself kind of just went, yeah, you know, we have better uses for someone with your talent. So even though he's still a devout believer of Alisha, I can't remember it, he is now actually switched into rogue. I mean, I haven't played with him yet, so this is all just background story. And he's level 4, D&D 5th edition, blah, 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 blah. And the idea is to create someone who's not your average typical healer style cleric. And I found an interesting rogue build that should be good. So he's basically going assassin and then can use, you know, on his sneak attacks and all those other kind of things, he can add. Does he get smite? I don't know, something like that. He can do fun stuff. So yeah, so that's the plan. So yeah, so that's what that button does, or command, redeem, viewer award, whatever we call it today. Gives you a miniature and a small story about the miniature. There's also, I think, a 5-minute cooldown just to avoid switching all the time. So yeah. Hey, Vladio! Are you back in the real world? the real cold world, also the really cold world. Good undercolor to go with that would be... Should I go all green with this dude on his clothes? Yeah, I think I am. That means this. We have snow. I mean, we had winter here. Lasted 3 days, I think. It's actually not entirely true. We had winter again yesterday. Snowing or snizzling? What is the difference between snowing and snizzling? See, the good thing about going a lot of green with this dude is that we can just use the same shade all over and cheat. It's not about so much saving the time it takes to do a shade. It's more about the hassle of shading several different places and messing it up and all that. So I'm all about cheating when it comes to that. Light workday for John, so I'm painting. Oh, you're changing the tussles. I'm gonna call them the tussles from now on. The townsfolk tussle. That's a Kickstarter. Is it actually a game or is it just a collection of miniatures? I didn't look into it at all. Okay, but now we actually have a thing that I'm a little curious about how to handle. Bill just joined and Bill missed out on story time. So I don't know if I should just be mean and say that's what you get for missing out on the live stream and have to watch the video on demand later. Or if I should maybe do the story segment twice per stream. But then other people will hear it again, and I don't think that's fair, because that would rather reward the people who show up and are on time, Bill, for their arrival at Pad 3. I also need to read up on chat, but I'm painting. In Danish, we have a term that literally translates to something like you should smith when the iron is hot. I don't know if there's probably something similar. And when it comes to painting, it's kind of like you should paint when the paint is wet. It just doesn't sound as magnificent as that. So yeah. So what are you guys saying in chat? Okay, so Townsfolk Tussle is a campaign game built like Kingdom Death Monster Light. Okay, cool, Bill. Thank you for the lurk. Oh yeah, the cartoons. It made me think of course, the old cartoons, but also Cuphead. It was a video game that came out a few years ago, which had amazing graphics, just in that old cartoony style. And having miniatures like that would be even more fun. So you have to fight a few baddies that get harder. Yeah. And yeah, I call out Bill. A wizard is never late. And how do we recognize you as a wizard, Bill? Is that the scapulet? Is that what does it? Is that how we can see that you're a real wizard? Thereby earning the right to arrive whenever you mean to? Because I mean, I'm not as clever about these things as you are, clearly, Bill. So, but I think the scapulet has something to do with it, doesn't it? Well, I am, of course, signing my own death warrant here, because I hope that in the near future I will either be playing Deep Rock Galactic with Bill and maybe have, you know, an small accident involving another of my, you know, co-players' random firearm. Shit, I forgot what it's called. Discharges, I think. So yeah, I mean, friendly fire is a very much a well-documented phenomenon. It happens to the best of us, and I feel that I got some of that headed in my direction pretty soon. But I also know now that Bill is very much a good DM, so I am hoping that he will at some point run a session in Diamond Head that I can attend. So I would love to try that, Bill. And I'm afraid that if I call you out too much now, you will remember and punish me severely for it later on. It shall happen. That is cool. Pants. I know pants are optional, but he's actually wearing them, so I guess I should paint them. I should actually also paint this little part here. Oh, Bill. Too much of a softie to intentionally kill PCs. Yeah, I mean, there's also not a lot of fun in killing off PCs when you suddenly realize that it is actually a far greater challenge keeping them alive. Just saying. I'm really pleased with the level of details on this miniature here. They've actually gone and done a really good job compared to the normal Gloomhaven minis. That makes me happy. I think it was last fall I actually painted are there 6 starting classes in the old Gloomhaven? I think there's 6. 8 sounds like too many, and with 4 you wouldn't be able to avoid some of them. You'd had all of them in play to begin with, which I know we didn't when I started. So I'm guessing there were 6, and I painted all 6 of them for a friend of mine who had done me a favor, and I didn't mind, you know, painting it for a friend. That was not the issue at all. That was actually fun, and I really kind of like the idea that they're playing with miniatures I painted. I feel kind of honored that he would want that. But painting those miniatures was just kind of, okay, I'll paint them, but I didn't enjoy painting them. Oh yes, Emily, I heard about that Kickstarter, and I don't, to be honest, I know that my impression is they're gonna be hugely successful and get people to pay a ton of money to the Kickstarter, but I really don't think it's a good idea for so many reasons. One, it's kind of milking a cash cow. That's one of the things. Not too happy about that. The other is that even though a lot of people do paint the minis, a lot of them will not be painting minis. And one of the things I really enjoyed about Gloomhaven is that it has the standees instead of gray plastic, so you can actually have something pretty to look on while you're playing the game right from the get-go. So yeah, but I mean, giving people the option of getting minis, sure, why not? It's just it's not something I'm gonna back. I know that for sure. Did you guys ever play Gloomhaven? Okay, so you did. I'm curious as to what those reasons are. Not because I want to change your mind. If it doesn't click with you, then it doesn't click with you, and you shouldn't play it. I'm just curious about hearing other people's experiences. Oh yeah, that hurts if they don't have the game ready. It can take a really long time to. I doesn't can take. It does take a long time to get it set up. There's just so much of it. Yeah, I mean, when I played it with friends, we played one scenario. Her. Very funny. Yeah, I mean, the lack of other than kill all enemy scenarios, that took a lot of it out of it for me. What kept me going was the character progression. I kept feeling like I got to do new things in or the same things in new ways, which apparently did it for me. I did go through 50-ish scenarios until in total 3 of the other 3 people in the group had gotten children since we started playing the game. So yeah, and we tried playing for a while, just 3 of us, with their baby there, with the couple I was playing with. It kind of just didn't really work out because we were meeting on weekdays, and that collided with her sleep and eating patterns, and if she wasn't sleeping, she took up a lot of attention from all of us, including me, because she's absolutely adorable little kid. But it just kind of was impossible to keep the focus and concentration that's really needed to plan out the steps in a good way in Gloomhaven. So yeah. Oh, Ori, welcome. We are painting a miniature from the board game called Gloomhaven: Jaws of the Lion. Oh yeah, and Emily, the leveling is terrible. Yeah. And in addition to the leveling, you also have the personal goals. That is the part of the normal Gloomhaven that I dislike the most, because they were so all over the place. We had I think when he was playing a healer kind of character, who had to watch a certain number of, spoiler alerts, of course, but I mean, the game has been out for 5 years or so by now, so I don't really, I'll give you the warner, but keep your ears closed if you don't want to hear one of the personal goals. He had to see a certain number of his allies, friends, the other players, go down from exhaustion, either on the lack of hit points or lack of cards, and he was a healer. It's kind of meant, and when we were playing, even playing at one level higher, difficulty level higher, it kind of just went, nah, not gonna happen, because we actually knew what we were doing and we were successful. And being successful meant that he could never reach his goal, and the goals are supposed to be these hidden secrets that you don't tell anyone about. But that would effectively mean that he would have to time his lack of heals on the rest of us. But even if he did that, I mean, that was just kind of feel weird, or we would guess the kind of goal he had. So in the end, we actually just decided to play with the goals open and help each other. And yeah, the story, to be honest, I did not expect any kind of story, because it's a board game. Board games don't have stories, as far as I know. Even things like, Imperial Assault or other things, with the exception of Mice and Mystics, which I never actually played, but just looked a lot at. I think that might actually have a decent story, but again, it's like a very, very small choose your own adventure book. And that's probably me saying that because I come from, tabletop role-playing games for 30 years. I have Mice and Mystics down in the basement, but don't have anyone to play it with. So yeah. So this is interesting. John, you said we liked Mice and Mystics, and Emily says we played a bit. So I'm curious. Talk about it. Yeah, thanks. So this one here is the character just called Hatchet, which is totally generic and absolutely lacking any kind of deep flavor and all that. He's basically got, as I counted it, 7 different small hatchets, throwing axes about his person. Probably a few I haven't seen, I mean, especially since it's probably also hatchets sticking out of his quiver. So, yeah. So he's basically throwing axes around. That's kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, Gloomhaven, if you want story, don't go for games like Gloomhaven or that would be my thing. Find someone, read a good book, or play role-playing games. Not hack and slash dungeon crawl role-playing games or campaigns, but more sort of social interaction, long-term plot, stuff like that. Yeah. Right, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense, John. We need brown. Yeah, no, I have the impression that your son is not that much into games, really. Oh yeah, you're playing Pandemic with him. How's that going? John, we have a very, very, very bland and plain mask here. I don't know if this is supposed to be eyes that you can see above it, but I don't see an edge, so I'm basically just going to treat it like one big mask. So what would be a good color? And yeah, already I think one of the reasons a lot of these games remind people of whatever game they're playing is that all of this is in fantasy settings, and there are certain tropes, the right word, stereotypes, character types, just things that go well in the different games. So it's kind of shared across all the different worlds. I remember when Magic the Gathering came out, 94, 95-ish, 93. I somehow got the completely wrong impression of how it was supposed to be played from the people I talked to. And remember, this was before the days of the internet. Well, technically it did exist, but I mean, we didn't use it for anything. And there was nothing like YouTube or stuff like that. We had bulletin boards and so on. And yeah, exactly, the whole buying new cards all the time is it's what eventually scared me away when I tried it. But in the beginning, the wrong impression I got, and that is on me and whatever friends told me about it, was that dark blue or purple? Yes, oh, purple. Excellent idea. Thank you, John. No, but I was somehow under the impression with Magic the Gathering that when you played, you were winning each other's cards. So if I lost, my opponent would go home with all my, not all my cards, but at least some of them. And that kind of just turned it into gambling for me. And as much as I enjoy games and I love exploring and seeing how games work and all that, gambling, playing games for money, it just doesn't appeal to me, because when you have money at stake, the whole concept of exploring and just going, oh, I wonder what this does, just disappears. So yeah. Oh, and I should probably point out, with these characters from Gloomhaven, there's a very nice little cardboard sheet with a beautiful picture of how the author, designer, whatever, expect these characters to look, color-wise and all that. But as always, I am gonna completely ignore that and just do my own. Yeah, or the deck building aspect is a really huge thing in Magic, and I think it's a really great challenge. It is, however, something I'm not too keen on, because I'm not very good at it, and I've had some problems with stress in the past, and that tends to destroy my short-term memory, which means that reading and also the memorizing things part, which is not the short-term memory, but other kinds of memory, I'm more of a doer than a thinker. So having a game like Magic the Gathering, where you have to look at all the different cards and then figure out which one go well together, that's really hard for me to do. And that is such a big part and such a good part of the game that I kind of just didn't get that side of it. That wasn't really possible for me. So I would usually either just look up good ideas for decks and try to duplicate those, or talk to my friends and get good ideas. So we had a lot of fun playing it. I like playing the game, but without that other thing. And then of course the whole every 3 months you have to spend a lot of money buying a lot of new stuff. It's kind of, I've never been happy for the business model, even though I know they gotta make they gotta make them money somehow, and they do that by selling cards in this case. Other companies, they just make new games that we buy instead and then replace or play instead of the ones we have, or just put on our shelf of shame. But yeah. Oh, thanks, Chancer. I don't believe I've seen you here before. Welcome to my stream. I paint miniatures for various board and role-playing games, and I chat about a lot of random stuff that just comes up either from chat or in my brain. So yeah, narrating your life would be an interesting challenge, especially since I don't know anything. So let's know where you're from. How are you? Oh yeah, the California. Cool. Oh yeah, me Max, and I'm gonna try to keep silent here, but I can't because I used to do artificial intelligence, and meat maxing isn't really what people are doing when they're min maxing D&D characters. I prefer just calling it optimizing things. Thank you, Bill. I've heard that quite a few times by now, so I'm actually beginning to believe that I have a soothing voice. So that's cool. Also let you know, Chancer, that I just started today on a new concept where I pre-record a small story from a role-playing world I'm kind of building. I've built most of, but to try and get that going again, just just record a small. I'm sorry, I'm from Denmark, by the way, so English is not my native tongue. I stumble over the words once in a while. But just recording some small segments of world building. They should hopefully be standalone, so you don't need to listen to all of them. But I kind of want to include at least one per stream. Probably just one. The other would be too much. And just let me catch my breath a little bit while it runs. And yeah. I should get into audiobooks. I would... Oh, thank you, Emily. But yeah, but reminds me, Bill, if you haven't, when you're done reading some Pratchett, I would highly recommend reading Jasper Fforde. I believe he's a British author. That's Ford with two F's in the beginning. F-F-O-R-D-E. F-F-O-R-D. Jasper Fforde. He has a really, really cool series, two series, in this weird world where books are actually alive. One of the tracks or whatever storylines is doing is the nursery crime division, and the other one is I can't remember what the department of the police is called, but they basically investigate literature crimes, which in this world includes kidnapping characters from books and holding them captive for ransom. And it sounds like a really, really obscure kind of thing, and it is. It's really weird. But imagine an author who manages to actually write a book and make it work about it's a murder mystery about who killed Humpty Dumpty. And I think that was the selling point that got me into the books, because I just went, and I growing up in Denmark, we had different set of nursing rhymes, so we didn't have the Humpty Dumpty. I know the rhyme, but I heard it as an adult, so I kind of knew what it is. But the selling point there was that, and the reason the investigator, and this is the beginning of the book, so it's not a spoiler. It's just the setup, like the trailer, if you want. The detective is, keen enough to realize that there was one thing Humpty Dumpty is good at. It's sitting on a wall, falling down, and not dying. Well, I know all the king's horses and all the king's men, blah, blah, blah. But he just doesn't believe it, because in this world, Humpty Dumpty is literally sitting on a fence every single night. But going that and just going, okay, this is a murder mystery. Someone killed Humpty Dumpty. Kind of just made me go, what? How do you get that idea? I don't want to be in audiobooks. I want to be inside this author's head. But again, so that was a very long roundabout way of saying that I should be in audiobooks. Just made me think, yeah, they actually enter books at some point. I'm not sure I want to do that, because that is a little intense. But yeah, it would be fun. But anyway, I will be continuing with the stories, Emily. So even if it's not full-blown audiobooks or live narration for Chancer, there will be more sort of less rambly segments. It's just going to be short 5-minute stories, so it's not going to take up all your time or attention or anything like that. But it's just, I figured it would be a fun way to add something new to the stream, but also get back into writing, which I really miss doing. I love using my imagination, if you hadn't noticed, and I love telling stories. And I realized at some point that hang on. I realized at some point that, you know, sitting, I'm a computer software developer thingy in my daily job, and I've been using computers basically all of my life. And that was way back in the day, young people, since before we had a mouse attached to the computer, which meant that we did everything with the keyboard and only the keyboard. So I just got really good really quickly at just writing and typing things. So I can actually write at a decent enough pace that it is not holding me back when I'm, you know, thinking about what I want to write and all that. I can almost keep up when writing, which is kind of cool because I'm not held back by it, by the typing speed. Well, you always are, but even so, it helps a lot. And through friends I met on the internet, because I never really had any friends when I was younger who wrote anything. I remember writing essays for especially in high school. I would write stories instead of doing picture analysis or analyzing a poem or writing something about blah blah blah. I would always tell stories, and got fairly good reviews on it from my teachers. So yes, the big over easy, that's the one, Bill. Thank you for looking it up. Oh, and Ori, actually, I know, I think I know what you feel when you're saying that your mind goes blank when you're trying to put it down, because there's nothing wrong with just staring at a blank piece of paper. But where I learned to just basically just write, which is a really, really difficult thing to do, at least it was for me. It was just the project called NaNoWriMo, which stands for National Novel Writers Month. And it's basically a group of people who found out that, you know, this book they'd all been talking about, you know, I'm gonna write a book one day. Oh yeah, cool, I'm gonna write a book one day. Yeah, and I'm gonna write a book one day. And they sat down, you know, 10 years later and reflected a little bit on this, and none of them had ever actually gotten around to, you know, writing that book they were gonna write one day. And these were journalists, they were copywriters, basically people who wrote for a living, probably still write for a living. Cool, Chancer. Your mom was part of it. I'm guessing that was NaNoWriMo. It's fun. But they basically just sat down, and then they as adults, adulty kind of people, sat down and kind of analyzed and went, okay, so why aren't we writing these books? And they came up with the conclusion that what you need to write a book, or basically do anything as a human being, is a goal and a deadline. Because if we don't have goals and deadlines, we either procrastinate, or we don't do it, or we just do the wrong thing instead, or whatever. And I mean, having a deadline saying I'm going to write, it's going to be finished tomorrow. That's fine, but what is going to be finished? That's where you need the goal. If you just have the goal of writing a book, well, they kind of figured out that did not go well. I'm loosely paraphrasing their story here, so I may get some details wrong. Just you can look it up for on the NaNoWriMo forums, wherever. It's kind of well documented out there. Basically, that was the core of the story, was that they realized that you needed that, but you also need a realistic goal. You're saying, hey, I'm gonna finish my 8-volume epic fantasy novel, and I'm gonna write it tonight. As also, that's not gonna fly. So yeah, so realistic goal, and then they started looking around, and long story short, they came up with having to write 50,000 words in 1 month. And that month happened to be November, because when they sat around thinking about it, when is a good time, and they expected to have a lot of students as well, because students don't have more time than the rest of us, but it feels like we have more time. And we kind of do. More freedom, at least. And since they kind of knew there would be a lot of those, they kind of went, yeah, but that's in the middle of exams or whatever. And they kind of just came to the conclusion that no matter what month they would take, it would always be in the middle of some really annoying period for everyone. There's no good month in the year for a crazy project like writing 1,666 words per day on average, blah blah blah. So they kind of just went, yeah, sure, let's go for November. It's getting dark, people are not out, usually not, unless you're in the southern hemisphere, of course. It's beginning to be winter, it's gonna be cold, and you have the long winter nights and so on, blah blah blah. They ended up in doing it in November, and just go for it. So I heard about this from a friend of mine, and I joined up. And the first year I joined NaNoWriMo, I wrote a huge eye-opener to see how much you can and cannot write in a month. I wrote a staggering 0 words on my first year of NaNoWriMo. So if you're out there and want to actually do NaNoWriMo, you cannot do worse than I did, because you cannot delete words that don't exist before you begin. But what I did do that month, though, was that I got the book called No Plot, No Problem, written by one of the sort of founders of the NaNoWriMo project. It's called Chris something. And I just wrote about his story, and that's also the story of NaNoWriMo and a lot of these different techniques and things they had learned and learned from others as well. And one of the really good choices that I've one of the good suggestions that I've benefited from a lot was just writing, starting in the middle of something. Don't start with the first word on the first page, because you're not going to get that right. You're not going to sit down and write the first sentence of your novel as the very first thing you do. And also, don't expect that what you write when you're writing the book is what is actually going to come out in the other end. There is an editing side to it as well, and that's where you perfect your use of words, you clean up your language, you fix all the mistakes. You find that perfect first line in your book. You find that later on, after you've written the book, usually. Well, I don't know if it's usually or not, but often, because then you know the book a lot better, and that means you can actually write that first sentence that draws the reader in and makes them read the entire book in one sitting. So what he said was instead of trying to do that, because a lot of them had actually said that they were just, they didn't write it because they didn't know how to begin, they didn't know what scene should they start with, and all those things that are completely irrelevant. Pick any scene. Do something like start in the middle of whatever, in the middle of the murder mystery. Maybe the detective have found that clue that makes him solve the entire case. Cool, write that scene and then see what leads up to it. Of course, there's also going to be a lot of world building. There's also going to be all the other stuff and keeping track of characters, blah, blah, blah. Insignificant details. Irrelevant. But the thing is, and that is the concept with NaNoWriMo, what came out of it is you have to write to get anywhere. And that having to write, for me, and I think pretty much everyone else doing NaNoWriMo, means that you don't delete anything you write during the month, because all the raw material is what you create your book from. If you don't have the raw material, you will never ever be able to edit it. You'll never be able to finish your book without that. Oh, that is a cool project, Ori. And yeah, and that's quite the challenge he's giving himself, your friend. But basically, that kind of what did it for me was the whole. To put it bluntly, you have to be. I usually say it in Danish, and I can't translate it well. You have to be willing to create some shit to be able to make something beautiful. Bad translation, but I think you kind of get the point, right? If you don't try, if you never write anything and only have a blank page, then it's never going to be good, because it's never going to be anything. So just write something. Yeah, it also makes sense that your friend is a fan of Star Wars if he's actually trying to write Star Wars movies. But yeah, another thing I also learned from I met up with some really cool people here in Denmark who were part of the NaNoWriMo project, and we had write-ups, as we call them, just meeting up at a cafe and writing. And I learned a lot about motivation because I'm really good at procrastinating. I mean, the reason I'm streaming is actually mainly because if I don't turn this into a thing and a stream and all that, I'll find something else to do other than paint. At least on most days anyway. So I kind of used the stream as a way of avoiding my procrastination. I was hoping it would turn into me just getting naturally back into painting more, which I did in the past, but hey, that's how it is. But sitting in a cafe with basically random strangers you haven't met before. Oh, I'm helping Emily procrastinate. Yes, thank you. Oh, the stream froze. Okay, cool. I am so happy to be of service, Emily. But no, but sitting in a cafe with random people that I didn't know, and they were, digging into their computers and not talking, would mean that I either had to sit there completely quietly, or leave, or hey, I don't know, maybe fucking write something. And then I started writing, and it was terrible, absolutely terrible. But then I kept writing, and it was still terrible. And then I started thinking a little bit about, okay, I did learn a lot of grammar at some point, and but most of my English actually comes from reading books and just imitating or copying sentence structures, stuff like that. I do not know all the fancy names, the real names for sentence structures and all that. But I tend to write fairly well. And that just grew. And what I learned from NaNoWriMo, which is an important thing for me to, or was an important thing for me to learn, was I learned to write quickly. I learned to stop thinking about every little detail in a sentence. I learned to stop correcting myself while writing, and I learned that writing a few thousand words is not difficult, because a few thousand words is just a few thousand words. It needs to be edited, no doubt about it, but that comes later. Just get the raw material down there and do it quickly. Because the faster you can actually get it down on paper, the sooner you can begin the whole process of tidying it up and all that. And that's the thing I've never gotten around to. I've never edited any of the stuff I did for NaNoWriMo, which I'm fine. I'm fine with that, because it wasn't never really my plan to publish it or anything. But I did, after that first year when I didn't write anything at all, I completed, I think it was six or seven NaNoWriMos in a row. And the reason I stopped was that writing 50,000 words in a month became easy. Still took the work, still took a lot of time and all that, but it was easy in the sense that I didn't start out NaNoWriMo by going, oh shit, am I gonna be able to finish this year? I stopped doing that. one year it was completely unfair to the people in the role-playing group I was in. I was a player, not a DM there. I was in the homebrew world with the Earthdawn system. What I basically did, I must have been in 2014, so that was a few years ago, I wrote our adventure logs as my NaNoWriMo project. And we played longer sessions back then. We played, all Saturday usually, so it was 8-10 hours worth of play. But I managed to drag that out. Those 2 game sessions, I managed to make into 50,000 words. That's about 180 or so pages in a standard paperback, sort of pulp novel. Yeah, I mean they're long sessions, but we used to go longer. We used to meet up at like 10 in the morning on Saturday and then play until 5 in the morning Sunday morning. We're too old for that now. And of course we would have breaks for dinner and lunch, but we never really took breaks from the game itself. We just kept playing, sometimes even also the next day. So it'd be these marathon sessions. So that was really long, but that was 8 or 10 hours worth of game time that I turned into 2 roughly 25,000 word adventure logs. And the adventure logs, Ori, since I believe, I'm guessing you may not know that term. It's basically just a log of our adventures, as it says, but just a really nice thing for the players to do to the game master, because it reveals a lot about how the players see the events of the game. What did we as players notice, and so on. And it's also really, really wonderful to have when you go back 5-10 years and look at the old games you played, and you kind of go, oh, do you remember that time when this character did whatever? And maybe you can remember, maybe you can't, but actually having the adventure logs has been really, really fun. Just going back and reading about all of this, it tells its own little story. So we used to do that a lot in our games. We still do. So it's not directly feedback. It's kind of indirect feedback. I describe what my character is doing or what the entire group is doing or whatever, and then the game master can read that and go, okay, so you're getting a lot. Oh no, Emily. Nothing worse than losing, creative stuff you've done, like writing, painting, or photos, or anything like that. Sorry to hear that. No, but the feedback comes in the game master being able to see what does whoever wrote the adventure log puts in a lot of tension on this aspect, or on this person they met, or whatever. And then you know that this was apparently something that meant a lot to them. And especially for the things we just kind of throw something in there because, oh, well, we needed to do something. So you talked to the smith and he was called Barak and blah, 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 blah. He was doing this and that. And all of a sudden you see an adventure log where this smith is taking up 2 whole paragraphs, and kind of like, okay, so this is not just the guy they bought a sword from. This is now someone they kind of have a relation to, someone who means something to them. Right, I better bring him back into the story at a later point because that's something I can use to engage with my players. So in that sense, there's some very direct feedback that you can use, and then also just if you, for instance, thought you had explained something. Hello, Modifian. I've fallen down into the NaNoWriMo hole. And we're talking adventure logs and so on. So yeah. By the way, I actually met Modifian through the Danish NaNoWriMo group. That's how I know her and her family. So yeah. So it's not only good things that come out of NaNoWriMo. Modifian is kind of stuck with me. So So yeah, so that was a thing about adventure logs. I mean, I highly recommend it if you're doing any kind of role-playing games and so on, and it's has story and plots and all that. Because oh yeah, the last point: if you as a game master think you have given a huge clue to where the treasure is hidden or whatever, and the players don't mention that at all in the adventure log, then maybe, just maybe, you didn't do that good of a job of actually giving out the clues as you thought you did. And that is important and valuable information to have as DM, because then on your next game session, you can give them an even bigger clue that they can then ignore. Yeah, Modifian, maybe you didn't poop yourself. Maybe you just pooped yourself in front of the wrong people. Or maybe you didn't poop yourself in front of the right people. Or something. Maybe the ship is... Yeah, maybe the smith is into that. Yeah, and that's another good point, Modifian. Modifian and I are in a... Let me try that again. I'm running a D&D fantasy campaign where Modifian plays in, and has a twist that it has the Lovecraft Cthulhu concept on it as well. And I'm really, really sad as well, Modifian, that not more people chose to write adventure logs. So I totally get that you stopped doing it. But it also means we don't have any recaps or anything of what actually transpired. Yeah, you're all up in my life. You and your all caps are all up in my life. And I wouldn't want it any other way, mind you. It's not that I'm stuck with you. Yeah, I mean, all the people in that group, again, have some kind of writer thing going. I don't actually know how much Adam do. But yeah. But that's mainly because I don't know him that well yet. I mean, we've only interacted mostly, through role-playing game sessions. So, but yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy who strikes me as someone who could easily write 500 words about what we did in the last game session, or more would be fine. Don't do 25,000 like I did twice. That is not, no, that's not polite. And yeah, Modifian, we will take away your caps lock. And if you don't behave, we'll also take away your gnome lock. So there. Yeah, Ori, Modifian is fun. You should see her in real life. That it gets even crazier. Yeah. And if you think that is bad, Modifian, then just you wait. Yeah, adulting is stupid. Just you wait, Modifian. If you are not behaving well, I may even remove your scroll lock. Because that's what you use every single day. I just know it. Yeah, there you go. Your scroll lock. How's that for a punishment? You're right, Emily. That is going too long. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I forgot. Modifian is a modifier. I mean, it kind of in her name. Can't really have someone called Modifian in your channel on a regular basis and not have them be mods. I mean, that's just crazy talk. So yeah. But okay. Modifian, you get to keep your scroll lock. I promise you that. Ooh, and I know for a fact that Modifian will soon be my dungeon master. And she's running the into the Wild West Witch Light Life thing. Anyway, the Fae campaign, the Witch Light campaign that came out recently. The Wilds Beyond the Witchlight. I will probably never be able to remember that. But yeah, thank you. Oh, are you saying you're going to be a dungeon mistress? I'm not sure because you want to hear that, Modifian? Because I'm pretty sure I can come up with some really, really annoying ways of saying that will take all the fun out of that. You know how I am. So that is this guy getting slightly done. I mean, actually looks really good, John, if you're still around. Otherwise, Emily, tell John that purple, brilliant, really cool. Also, I really love the color purple. I just realized that he may actually have not pants on, but just have his bare legs. He now have tights. And yes, Modifian, you cannot see his buttocks. There's a cape in the way. Wait, Modifian, is that all I am to you? A beard accessory? Is that where we are? Oh yeah, he does have a type. By the way, Modifian, I have new viewer rewards. More things you can spend your points on. Cool, thank you for the lurk, Ori. Look forward to having you here again. We still have a little time. I usually stream from 7 to 9 CET, that's European time zone. So that's coming up in about 15 minutes, but still time to paint a little bit more on this dude, dudette, whatever. I think that there are so many more details on these miniatures than I had at first thought. It means I actually get to paint some details and have some fun doing all of that. All the fun and all the frustration, of course, as well, but that is part of it. And I kind of like painting minis because looking at the mini and you're having to paint it also makes me go, okay, so that there is an axe shaft. Okay, that there is also an axe shaft. That is also an axe, and so on. You don't see them until you have to paint them? Yeah, that's true. This purple pimpernel dude. Yeah, I kind of know who the purple pimpernel is, historically in literature, but I have a feeling that it's not exactly the same. It's just this purple pimpernel. So this is the purple pimpernel. I got it now. What if it's Friday night and I'm tired? I'm not fast. Oh, oh, a Looney Tunes Daffy as the Pimpernel doesn't seem right. I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe actually it does. Okay, so here it does get a little difficult to see what's what. Fuck it. We are not going for any Golden Demon Awards with this miniature, or any other miniature for that matter. Just going for painted miniatures. And why painted miniatures? Because painted miniatures always do better than unpainted miniatures. It's a long story there from Modifian. I will read it. Can you just read it out loud to me? That would be nice. Thank you. So now, obviously, I'm not gonna, well, not obviously, but I'm not gonna leave the axes black, but I just find that giving them a black base coat underneath the metal paint is a lot better, gives a far better starting point than painting metal over white. So what did you write, my dear Modifian? You were an exchange student. Your host dad was so impressed with me because I knew so many of his classical music overtures. Then I had to tell him I learned them from cartoon and he was highly bemused. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good story. And yeah, we get a lot of it. So yeah. By the way, Modifian, you missed out on story time earlier. Because I will try in the future to include a pre-recorded and narrated small story. I want to get back into writing, and I want to do some world building stuff on a D&D world I made a year and a half ago. And I figured, why not combine the two and then record whatever I come up with. Let me lurk on my DM secrets. Yeah, well, they may be secrets, but I would not. I don't think I'm gonna reveal too many secrets. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be kind of public knowledge, and also obviously be writing it. So I'm probably gonna dump it down somewhere. I don't know, Morivan, did I ever tell you about the Koravia world I built? I even made a map and everything for it. I was kind of sad we only got to play like 4 game sessions or so in it before the group kind of imploded. So I've not given up on actually running something in it one day. How to weave PC plot points into a published adventure? How do you tie these characters to this already created world? How much free license should you take? You should take as much free license as you need to get the PC, character-driven, player-driven things to work. Because in my opinion, that is way more important than whenever some person thingy writes in a book about a plot. Can you handle a little bit of a spoiler, Modifian, from our current group? I'm guessing the yup was to the spoilers. Well, you know how we're on Farzin, the island Farzin. Let me just put it like this. I will not spoil too much, but I will let you draw your own conclusions. There are no Fae on Farzin whatsoever. I don't know if you get the ramifications. Seems needlessly dramatic, but if you can draw some conclusion from that, yeah. Because the thing is, you didn't know there were no Fae. So when I start talking about those, and you came upon the grove with the huge tree down in the tunnels, you just accept it, just like you accept that there's a ghoul queen who has a fling with her skeleton bone golem or whatever. So you don't know what's in it. Your players, well, you will know when you're DM, but as a player, you don't know what is actually in the plot and how much the GM just slaps on top of it. So yeah, but I mean that's the thing, and also the other thing about the whole aspect of the Fae working and coexisting with Khazar is just something I made up to make it work better and to help Jess and Jess's character fit into the storyline and give her something that was hers just as much as you get your own things. There's also the small matter of a certain toy horse that you know about. And I mean, you have kind of ended that part of the storyline, but still, all the thing about, you know, bringing her to the ocean and all of that is something I built on, because I had a feeling that it would fit your group really, really good to have that kind of sort of personal thing and effectively a small side quest. But basically, I think in the book, all you could do was just, you know, give you some information, let you know a bit about this and that, and that was it. And if you were aggressive or whatever, she would attack you. But yeah, but all of that, the other thing, this whole adding that, just sometimes it just kind of do it because it seems right in the moment. But that one I kind of thought out in advance, going, we can use this, and the horse or other similar toy, I mean, other than a horse, was indeed in the original plot and story, but the rest of it is just kind of, yeah, and that adds so much. And I mean, that is, you know, to me, what role-playing is about. It's about collaborative storytelling. It is about people making something they remember and talk about for years to come. One of my good friends, who is, by the way, also, he's called Jon, which is the Danish way of pronouncing John's name, Emily. So I know many people who are called Jon or John who play role-playing games. Yeah, and again, Modifian, the whole not getting you out to the ocean kind of became a thing for me, because that is something I could, you know, play with. And you know, basically drag you around by your nose. No, but one of my friends, Jon, he's often told me a story, and I cannot tell it as well as him. So I'll just give you the highlight of one of his characters being nearly killed by this badass, awesome assassin type thing called the Black Lotus. And if anyone goes, oh, that's not very original, remember, we're talking in medieval setting. And these may not be the most cleverest people, so they're just going to go for a name that sounds cool. Like Carl Urban says in Doom, the movie, they're Marines, Samantha, not poets. No, but the story is that he's almost killed by the Black Lotus in a back alley somewhere. Then just as it's about to go down, and he's just on his knees, an old man in a wheelchair just rolls around at the edge of the alley going, "Not yet, Black Lotus. I need him alive." Then he just rolled on out of there. And he was left alive. Or something like that. I can't remember the details, but that story is just kind of like, what the hell? And yeah, Modifian, I actually liked the movie Doom. I've been a huge fan of the Doom computer games, especially in the early days. And especially when I realized just how much they did to drive technology change and evolution and research. That was amazing. But the movie it's an action flick. It's well made, good effects and all that. But it has a lot of these small details that I just like. And the reason that comment is because Carl Urban's character is called I can't remember his first name, but he's called his last name is Reaper. So, what code name do you think he's got in this sort of Marine Corps soldier setting? The Grim Reaper, or he's just called Grim. And they meet his sister later on. Blah blah blah. She's a scientist. They have to go rescue the facilities he's in and so on. And she just looks at him and go, Grim Reaper, and he just looks at her and he's just looking so tired. They're Marines, Samantha, not poets. But it kind of struck because it's true. I was in another role-playing group many years ago where they met. I was a DM and did a small sort of city adventure, blah blah blah. They meet up with a local bad guy, ruffian type thing. Really, and we are talking ruffian. We are not talking evil mastermind of any kind here. No intelligence to speak of, no planning skills. And he was called Blood because he was really badass. I'm gonna name myself Blood. And then one of my players started berating me about this and going, "Oh, that's just not very creative, blah blah blah." And I know she kind of meant it probably at the character in the game, but she directed it at me because she, as a person living in the 21st century, expected better and more creative names for villains. I haven't enabled gambling in Nightbot, but Modifian, if you type minis as a command, comes up with something new you haven't seen before. I mean, it's just a link, but the new viewer rewards, choosing a mini for this display, you can choose any one of the minis in that picture. I will be updating the picture once in a while with new minis. You can either choose a random one, in which case I will roll some dice to pick a random miniature to display, or you can pick which one you want shown. Yeah. So yes, not only do I have story time, Switch Mini 600, that means you get to choose. But you cannot say the third one in the back row on the picture, you have to describe it. So Blonde Barbarian. I'm guessing he's the guy with both arms out to his side. Okay. So here you go. One blonde barbarian. Like a merkin. What is a merkin? I actually painted that stream just over a year ago. Pubic wig, okay. Dang, I did not know that. Thanks, Bolivian. I thought I had set this on sort of fairly loose, casual settings, but still has some glitches in the auto mod. Oh, by the way, I think that Twitch, I've only just started streaming again after a lengthy break, and just noticed the other day that Twitch has apparently enabled some ads that may have been enabled on my last stream. I didn't check the video, so I apologize if you got a lot of ads last time. I don't do this to make money off of it. I have a perfectly good job for that in my daily life. I'm doing this because it's fun to paint and chat, and it's fun to hang out with you guys. So I apologize for that. They should also be gone now, at least. But yeah. I can also see that we're coming up on the end of the stream. It's okay, because I also think that I'm coming up on the end of my tongue being able to figure out what it is my brain is trying to make it do. That's usually a good place to stop chatting. Oh, okay, so in that sense a pubic wig. Okay, I did not know that. Now I know. So I'm learning something on a Friday night. Of course, learning something about sex workers on a Friday night, it's gonna sound wrong when I say it. Actually, that barbarian has some story to it. Well, the mini and the paint job, that is. He spent so much time on that top knot. I mean, that's what I like about miniatures. You can tell stories just by looking at them. No, but the story about him and where he came from is that he just leaves it in and uses the melted grease of the enemies he's eating. No, but I painted him as kind of a challenge last year. Last Christmas, where I took one of the paint starter sets from Army Painter, just 9 standard paints, black and white, the basically the colors you see on him: brown, green, yellow, red, blue, skin tone, and one shade, one brush, and then a separate brush, my fine detail brush here. And I used nothing else. None of my other paints, I got way too many of those. And the challenge was to just paint him only using the beginner set to see how much can you get out of that. And that was a really, really fun thing to do, and it turned out really well. I think you can do the colors, you can do the highlights and the shades and all that. But anyway, I think we will leave old Hatchet in peace for now. And I will go see if we can find someone to raid. The white things in Pimpernel's hat, that's actually horns of some kind. Not entirely sure why, because if I recall correctly, he is described as being a human. He has literally no features in his face. I mean, you can see the barest sort of hint at a nose and eyes, but I'm basically just gonna say he's got a full cap on. It's not tiefling horns. He's a human. Go figure. But there it is. It is what it is. So anyway, I will go find someone to raid and see if we can have fun with them. Let's do, oh yeah, Moko Maid, the two sisters doing a lot of fun. They're basically just sitting around doing crafts and arts, playing Minecraft now, it seems like. I think we'll go say hello to them. So please stick around, and thanks for joining. It's been absolutely fun. Great to see new people here as well.